Who said go reparations?
The baby. Peace and love, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new, please like and subscribe. Peace and love, everyone. Hope everyone is having a wonderful day out there. This is our second day of the summer solstice. And this week's been an interesting week. We know we had Juneteenth on Monday, so a lot of people were celebrating that. And tonight we're going to talk about the question of reparations. Since we in the Juneteenth spirit, let's talk about that. So when are we going to get ours? We're going to get our compensation, make amends, etc. So tonight we're exploring this very important topic with our guest tonight, the beloved Ogbonna Hagins of Philadelphia. And he's the former candidate for city council, a reparationist. They affectionately known as the Philly Green Man. When I was up there last, I heard people calling him that. And the environmental superhero and a lifelong Philadelphian. So, welcome, brother, to the show. And please share a little bit about yourself.
Oh wow, thank you. As you stated, I'm a lifelong Philadelphian.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I graduated from Dobbins High School. I also taught at Dobbins High School. Uh, I taught architecture there,
Okay.
and as you mentioned, I taught there for 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
And as you mentioned, I'm a former candidate for city council at large. I ran this past May, and I also ran 4 years ago. And people say, "Oh, you lost the campaign," but I tend to say that Philadelphia lost because I wasn't elected. I'm not a part of the establishment. I wanted to bring change, and
Mm-hmm.
one of my major platform issues was reparations.
Okay.
And you know, when I ran 4 years ago, I knew that it was something economically wrong. With particularly Afro Americans, Black folk,
Okay.
Black Americans. But I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I always said, we need more opportunities, we need more jobs, we need more education. And the reality is, even with more education, even with more jobs, we still wouldn't have the wealth that was stolen from us since 1850.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, 68 million white families today can directly link their wealth to the 1850s.
Mm-hmm.
45 million white families today can directly link their wealth to the Homestead Act of 1862, where the government just gave white folk land in the Midwest,
Okay.
and we got nothing. And I want to preface this too. I'm going to, use the term American freedmen
All right.
because legally that's who we are. We're American freedmen. We were the ones who were freed, whose ancestors built this country.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't use that term from a legal perspective, you're not talking about us, and you will lose every time. And that was part of what happened with the black farmers, where they didn't get uh, funding that they were supposed to get because they called themselves Black Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And you can call yourself that. Hold up a second. You can call yourself that. When you're talking amongst friends, but when you're in the court of law, when you're dealing with something as important as reparations, you got to use the proper language, and the proper language is American freedmen.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So greetings and welcome, Monster Shannon. We got somebody in the chat. Balance to you as well. All right. So what exactly are reparations? Let's start there before we get into this this conversation. And for some reason, to some people, this is a controversial topic. I'm sure you probably have heard the critics and things like that. But what exactly of reparations? Because by definition, reparations
At the right
are,
time.
are compensation for an injustice. So how would you define reparations?
Reparations is repair.
Mm-hmm.
And reparations are given all the time throughout America.
Okay.
Uh, when you've lost something that wasn't your fault,
Mm-hmm.
somebody owes it to you.
Okay.
They owe you a repair. So just like if you have a car accident and it wasn't your fault, the
Mm-hmm.
person that hit you, they owe you compensation on whatever your loss was.
Mm-hmm.
So in regards to reparations for the American freedmen, from from 1850s, from the time that we were supposedly emancipated
Okay.
to today, things have been stolen from us. From when we were quote unquote freed,
Mm-hmm.
we went from being enslaved to convict leasing, to Jim Crow laws,
Mm-hmm.
to discrimination in education, to discrimination with no GI Bill. When we decided to build our own communities, the so-called Black Wall Streets, they came and they burnt them down.
Okay.
The devaluing of our properties,
Yes.
the redlining, all of these things were instruments to take away from us.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about reparations, we're saying that whatever the United States government allowed to happen through legislation,
Mm-hmm.
and otherwise, we're owed some money. And on top of that, uh, after the emancipation, we were promised 40 acres and a mule. And Dr. Darity, who is one of the country's top economists, he's estimated that the reparations that's due to us is over $14 trillion, and that's based on the value of just the land that was promised to us. So in essence, when you look at all of the issues that are facing the American freedmen, the Afro-American, the African American in this country, it's all as a result of things that were done unjustly to us.
Okay. All right. So you explain, why do we need reparations? And this is just, part of the discussion, because some people feel that is not needed. Although other ethnic groups in this country have received reparations for a variety of different injustices, or as you mentioned, what are some why do we need reparations? You did kind of answer that a little bit in the last question, but why specifically do we need reparations?
We need repair. We need economic repair because of the injustice that's been done to us.
Mm-hmm.
And just to give you, a little bit of data, the uh, the American freedmen by 2053, it's estimated that we will be at zero wealth.
Mm-hmm.
So without that, we're going to be continuously out here committing crimes, trying to make it. And that's why there's so much crime and violence in our communities. People commit crimes because they don't have money for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just have people out here haphazardly, carjacking and robbing people and breaking into people's cars and selling drugs if they had access to economics. And because of all of the negative aspects that this country is responsible for, we're out here just committing all manner of atrocities to try to get money, and people are looking at us like we're the bad guys, when in reality we don't have any generational wealth. Our ancestors were not able to pass anything down from generation to generation. Like I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned,
So it's a
68
deficit.
million white families, their wealth today, not how much they're making, but their actual wealth can be directly linked to the 1850s. And again, in the 1850s, we were enslaved.
Yes. Okay. Um, what do you think should be included in the reparations? Should it just be financial compensation? Should it be things like land, other resources? What do you think should be included in reparations?
Well, land definitely should be something that's included. But now let's look at it. You have reparations that are due from, for example, from Philadelphia. Then you have reparations that's due from the state of Pennsylvania. And then you have reparations that's due from the United States government. So, for example, in Philadelphia, there was a study that was done by the Brookings Institute
Mm-hmm.
that determined that American freedmen's family, their home values
Mm-hmm.
have been their homes have been devalued more than $48,000 per home since the year 2000. So what does that mean? That means that there's been over $156 billion worth of home value that has been stolen from the Afro-American, the American freedmen's families,
Mm-hmm.
from the value of their homes. So what I was calling for when I was running for office was that there needs to be a hearing done to identify who's responsible for devaluing those properties, and that whoever is responsible, they need to be sued.
Mm-hmm.
They need to be sued to repay the money that was stolen because of the devaluing of the properties. If you can imagine, or just know that Philadelphia is the poorest big city in the nation,
Okay.
and we Afro Americans, the American freedmen, comprise the majority of those who are in poverty. So that $156 billion could be jobs that were created, could be money that was passed down to people in the families.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at the poverty that we're dealing with, it's systemic.
Mm-hmm.
It's systematic. There's been situations that have occurred that put us in this situation. And many times people say, oh, all you got to do is work hard.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, all you got to do is go to school and get a good education. But the data shows that getting a good education doesn't mean that you're going to get a good job, because the average white person who is a high school dropout makes more than the average black person who has a 4-year degree. So
Mm-hmm.
because of this discrimination, just getting a good education is not going to do it.
Okay.
Just we, like Dr. King said back in '68, it's cruel just to tell a person to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, and they don't even have boots. You see, so we need to get economically repaired to be able to start businesses, to be able to pay the bills, to not live in the conditions that we've been forced to live in. And many times people, they want to use examples like Oprah Winfrey, LeBron James,
Mm-hmm.
Michael Jordan,
Mm-hmm.
and people like that as examples of what we can do. But those people are the exceptions to the rules.
Okay.
Most people are not going to, I mean, you look at those cats, they made money through entertainment and through sports.
Mm-hmm.
Most people are just not going to do that. And I'm not sure if it's like that, like this where you are, but if you look at the corner stores throughout the hood, the majority of the corner stores are owned by someone who is not from this country.
Okay.
They're from either Korea, or they're from China, or they're from India. And people use them as examples and say, look, they've come here and they've come up, but this government helps them.
Mm-hmm.
In Philadelphia, there is an Office of Immigrant Affairs. There's no Office of Freedmen Affairs.
Mm-hmm.
So the Office of Immigrant Affairs helps immigrants who come into this country, and they can start businesses within our communities. Then they come into our communities and they don't give back to the community. They don't hire anybody within those communities. But yet and still they use them as examples of people that we should look at as who worked hard to make it. They didn't work hard. They were given money. They were given grants to start their businesses. And
Mm-hmm.
we just simply have been, left behind.
Okay. If, well, not if, when the case is when we receive reparations, how, what are some ways you suggest that we use this to benefit us, benefit the freedmen?
Well, we
Because
we we got,
the reason why I asked that question is so much disparity that already exists, economic disparity, health disparity is so much. And I know you believe at the root of it is economic. So how would we use the reparation money and the resources to begin to benefit us?
you know, that's a great question.
Okay.
And I look at the stimulus money that was given during COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of our people say that we wasted that money, that we
Okay.
went out and we bought all kinds of designer this and designer that, and that we bought cars, and yeah, we did. But when you don't have something for so long,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what do you want to do? You want to go and buy something. Don't expect somebody who's been, poor, impoverished, always having to rob Peter to pay Paul. Don't expect them not to go buy a plane ticket to go to Hawaii. The
Mm-hmm.
first time they've ever been to Hawaii in their life. And you're going to say they wasted the money. But this is what that money was for. That money was specifically to stimulate the economy.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't use that as an example of people wasting money, because we also started businesses with that money. We didn't start big businesses, but people bought automobiles so that they could start driving Uber and Lyft.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And DoorDash and all those other things. So to answer your question in terms of what we should do, we're going to use that money responsibly. Are we going to have people that are going to go buy things that we think they shouldn't buy? Of course we are. But
Mm-hmm.
that's what America is about. America is about making money and spending money. Unfortunately or fortunately, that's the way it is. And most of the issues that we have is because we don't have money to spend.
Okay.
We don't have money to spend. We don't have what many people have, disposable income.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question, what should we do with the money? We should buy properties. We should buy businesses. We should identify areas of investment, because that's what America does. America invests in businesses to make money. You have the stock market, you have stocks and bonds, you have all of these different areas that money is used for, that we don't have the money to do those things.
Okay.
So we should buy property, like I said, property should be given, but That's part of why, coincidentally, today, Philadelphia City Council passed a resolution to establish a reparations task force. So, what that task force is going to do, that task force, first of all, is going to identify who actually has been damaged.
Mm-hmm.
Who are these people? Who and specifically, it's going to be lineage based, and it's going to be not all black people. And many times people get mad at me when I say that, but or when I say this, but all black people are not the same.
Mm-hmm.
We everybody who is black in the United States does not get reparations. The
Okay.
person who just moved here from Africa, anywhere in Africa, 10, 15, 20 years ago, did not were not uh, affected by the transatlantic slave trade. Those people who are from Jamaica, from Haiti, they don't get anything from here. It's specifically the American freedmen. And I'm
Okay.
not saying that because I don't like other black folk. I look, we all are descendants from Africa, but
Okay.
you can't come here and benefit from what our ancestors suffered from. You follow me?
Yes.
So the American so that reparations task force will examine who's responsible. That
Okay.
reparations task force will identify what the damage was. That
Mm-hmm.
reparations task force will identify what what's the cost. So we already know that our home values for just the last 20 years has been $156 billion. So
Mm-hmm.
we know that black folks got a chunk of that coming to them. You know, how were we damaged through redlining? How were we damaged through discrimination in education? How
Mm-hmm.
were we damaged by not being allowed to participate in the unions? Because in Philadelphia, there's only about 5% American free. Well, let me just say this: about 5% black folk who are in the electrical union here in Philadelphia.
Okay.
So that's a very small percentage. So we have to be able to with that task force, identify where the damage has been done and identify what's the value of that damage. So the one thing that many people say about reparations is that, oh, you weren't enslaved. You it doesn't matter whether I was enslaved. Look, my great grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
well, my great great grandmother
Yes.
was born into slavery.
Mm-hmm.
I knew my great grandmother. She was
Okay.
103 years old. Her and my grandfather were sharecroppers in North Carolina.
Okay.
So, sharecroppers really got over on, I mean, not sharecroppers, the owners of the land got over on the sharecroppers.
Yes.
So, my great grandmother wasn't able to pass anything down to her children because she didn't have the land. She didn't own the land. She was being taken advantage of. So all of that, now that would go to the federal government area where we will identify, what was stolen on a national level and who are the recipients of that what which was stolen.
Mm-hmm.
You follow me? So that
Yes.
task force is important in just identifying who is responsible for repairing us, who needs to be repaired, um, and how much it's going to be. What is it going to be? Is it going to be land? Is it going to be education? And I'm not saying that you know it shouldn't be some education, but that shouldn't be the major aspect of it. The major aspect to me should be land and money.
All right. That's a good answer, man. All right. Um, how can people go about seeking and receiving reparations? I know that there's some talk about, like you mentioned, the task force is one solution. What are some other solutions? You know, because there's people all over this country that are interested in pursuing this. So how do you go about seeking and receiving it?
It has to be done through legislation, you
Okay.
know, because it's through the government that all of these atrocities occurred. So
Mm-hmm.
just like in California, they have a reparations task force. And I think they started one in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
In Illinois, there was one. There's actually one that actually started paying out in Evanston, Illinois,
Okay.
where they legalized marijuana there,
Mm-hmm.
and the revenue from marijuana went to giving the recipients $25,000 to either repair their home or a down payment. You know, so the first aspect of it is getting legislators, elected officials who are willing, like they did in Philadelphia, to establish the task force to identify the damage that was done and then to begin uh, dispersing the monies that's due to those people. And one of the things that people often say is that, oh, it's going to bankrupt the country, you know, paying all this money out. And it's just a lie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Alan Greenspan, who was the Fed chair, he once said that there is no debt that America can't pay. Okay. You have people all over the country who are hitting the lottery for hundreds of millions of dollars, right? That
Yes.
doesn't bankrupt the country. That doesn't bankrupt the state.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So, and then also, uh, uh, the United States wrote off over $1 trillion worth of debt
Mm.
uh, with the PPP loan. You know, your listeners can Google that and check out that this is what America's about. America's not going to run out of money. As long as there is an America, there's going to be money. And we're by paying us what's due to us is not going to bankrupt the country. Nobody said anything about the country being bankrupt when the government is sending all this money over to Ukraine.
Mm.
Nobody said anything about, you know, the country being bankrupt when they send billions and hundreds of billions of dollars
Mm-hmm.
across the world on
Yes.
a yearly basis.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just when it comes to us where there's a problem,
Okay.
with economically repairing Black folk.
I
And
see.
until we're repaired economically, we're going to have all of these issues in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. All right. All right. So, are there any other thoughts you'd like to share on it? I was going to check to see if there was any questions in the chat room. No questions in the chat. You have any other details you
Well,
want to?
yeah, let me just read this resolution.
Yeah, please do.
Let me read the beginning of it and just show you where hopefully they change this. But if it's not changed, it's gonna cause some serious problems. So the resolution, it says authorizing the creation of the Philadelphia Reparations Task Force to
Mm-hmm.
study and develop reparation proposals for Black Philadelphian descendants of enslaved Africans in the United States. Now, with this first sentence, it just creates a problem from a legal perspective because it says Black Philadelphians,
Mm-hmm.
Black Philadelphian descendants of enslaved Africans. But from a legal perspective, we're not Black Philadelphians. We're American freedmen from
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia, and that may cause a problem in regards to, once it does get to the courts, or if anybody decides to challenge this. We
Mhm.
don't want to have any issues with the challenge of reparations. And then it also says, whereas from 1619 through 1865, the transatlantic slave trade resulted in approximately 4 million Africans and their descendants being enslaved in the United States. So, I mean, that's true, but at the time in 1619, there was no United States.
Mhm.
You see, so these are just issues that may come up if this is challenged, So I just think that it's important too for the task force to be comprised of people that really understand the history, that understand, uh, what actually was lost, what needs to be repaired, and how it should be repaired.
Mhm.
And I say that it should be that the task force should be all American freedmen,
Mhm.
or maybe a Quaker or two, because the Quakers were very involved in abolishing slavery,
Right.
and they have a lot of records in regards to the economic aspect of what was going on during that time. But without a doubt, there shouldn't be anyone on that task force that's not representative of the American freedmen.
Mhm. Hey, that's a good answer. Very good.
Yeah.
All right.
And
So,
I would recommend too that people just do some research. It's so much information out there about reparations,
mhm.
about decreasing the economic wealth gap, and just know also um that even though the Democratic Party is not necessarily in favor of reparations, they know that there's an issue. Even President Biden said that the number one pressing issue in America is decreasing the economic wealth gap.
Mhm.
But at the same time, they're not pushing the whole idea of reparative economic justice for the American freedmen.
Yes.
Yeah. So definitely do some research.
Mhm.
It's a lot of info. If you're really interested, the
Yeah.
person is really interested in reparations and what has to be done and how it should be implemented. It's so much information on reparations. And don't just listen to like comedians and people who have done no research on how black folks spend money.
Mhm.
People say, we mentioned this earlier, people say that, oh,
Yeah.
we're going to waste the money, or they're going to just buy this and buy that. But
It's
it's
interesting that they say that, but do they say that about other groups of people when they get reparations or when they get some kind of compensation from the government? Do they say that about them? That's interesting.
right. Right. And again, all the data shows that we're not going to, waste money. The data also shows, for example, that black folk only spend about $2,000 a year on clothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And the majority of our money goes towards living expenses, rent,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
paying bills. But you may see some examples of people who are, spending a whole lot of money on things, but you got to figure out where those people are getting that money from. Where's that money coming from? A lot of that money comes from the underground economy. People
Okay.
who are out there hustling on the streets, and just because somebody has a pair of Jordans on, don't mean that they're actually real Jordans, so to speak. You know what
Okay.
I mean? Don't mean that they didn't go to a thrift store and bought them. But don't just assume that we're going to just waste the money. And
Mm-hmm.
furthermore, who are you to tell me how to spend my money? If I decide to waste it, guess what? It's on me. Are you really concerned with me wasting it? So if you're concerned with someone wasting that money, when you get yours, establish a business, based on those things that you think people are going to waste that money on. So if you think they're going to buy nothing but shoes and sneakers, guess what? You go and open up a shoe and sneaker business so they can come and waste that money with you.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And I use this as an example that if, let's say you have a job and your employer says, that employer notices that every time you get paid, you come in with a new pair of sneakers. You have your hair done every time you get paid. You come in with new clothes, and then all of a sudden that employer says, you know what? It's time for you to get paid this week, but I think you're going to waste this money. I owe you this money, but you know what? I'm not going to give it to you because you're going to do nothing but waste it. You can't tell nobody that you owe money to what to do with their money.
True. This is true. Yes.
Yeah.
How can people contact you if they want to get involved or support you in your political movement?
Oh, I'm glad you answered. Let me just, before I answer that, let me just tell people too, like one of the things that I do, I'm known as a Philly Green Man.
Yes.
And one of my platform planks, it was about the environment and recycling. So one of the things that I do, I collect unwanted sneakers and shoes that are still wearable, and I have them shipped to Haiti and West Africa, as well as clothing and baby toys and bicycles and all those things. And also, when I ran, I was also I wanted to fight to legalize marijuana, not because I smoke, because I don't, but marijuana is a big money maker, number one. And number two, data shows that it will decrease crime and violence. So my thing is, why not legalize it? People are out here selling it anyway. So those are like some of the environmental and green things that I've been working on. I'm also an architectural designer too. I design houses and I taught architecture and all that stuff. But if anybody's interested in my political movement, because I will be running for office again.
Okay, great.
And the reason that I'm running is not just to be in office. I don't have to be in office to be fulfilled. The reason that I'm running is to create legislation that's going to benefit the masses of our people. And because we don't have people in office who are actually running and in office for the right reasons. They're in office because they want to, better their situation. So if you want to get in contact with me, I'm Philly Green Man on Instagram, Philly_green_man.
Okay.
And on Facebook, it's Ogbonna Hagins, OGBONNA HAGINS. And if anyone wants to reach out, I can be reached at 267-780-0112, 267-780-0112.
Okay, give thanks. Thank you for sharing this informative information with us, because a lot of people do not know exactly what reparations is and why it's something that should be done to mitigate the disparities and some of the other issues that we have in the U.S.
Right.
It's a topic that is gaining in popularity now. And it's been talk of it years ago, but it seems like there's highs and lows. Like there's a lot of talk about it, and then it's like almost like it's not, or it's forgotten. And I know there are movements and groups that have consistently been seeking reparations from the government, like in Cobra and some other groups out there. I don't know the names of all of them. So it's not just something that is just, it's not something new.
No, and just to let people know, reparations, like I said before, reparations are given all the time. If
Yeah.
there's a farmer in Florida, let's say, and their crop is destroyed because of frost,
Mm-hmm.
the government will economically repair that farmer.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's done all the time. You have
Mm-hmm.
immigrants that come to the country, they get repaired before they even have a problem. And
Mm-hmm.
nobody talks about that. And that's a whole other issue in regards to the so-called illegal immigrants. And I understand people, wanting to get a better life by coming to America and everything like that. But there are people who are already here that are
Mm-hmm.
not getting the help that they deserve. So if your house is on fire, I'm pretty certain you're gonna put your house fire out before you put the next person's house fire out. So
This
we
is
need to we need to deal with the issue of the American freedmen and what's due, what's owed to us, and it'll ultimately make this country better.
yes. Yes. All right then. Well, thank you
Yep.
so much for sharing this
All
information
right. No,
and
I appreciate it.
appreciate you as well.
All right.
And we look forward to having you on the show again, and hopefully on Monday nights, some nights you can join us on the Healing Cipher. That'd be great.
No problem. I appreciate it.
All right then. Peace and
All
love,
right. Take
everyone.
care.
Thank you out there for watching. Thank you everyone for your support. If you have any questions about reparations, please reach out to Ogbonna and speak with him about it, and he can advise you on how to go about getting the compensation, or start at least starting the conversation with it.
Right. You got to get involved in your local politics as well. Most
Mm-hmm.
people don't go to their city council meetings. Most people don't even know who their city council members are. And the first step into even initiating reparations is getting with the lawmakers, because that's just the way that it's done in America. People make laws, they make bills to initiate things. So if you're not involved in politics, you're not really interested in reparations, and you got to be involved in politics anyway. A lot of our people don't want to vote. We think that everybody's crooked in politics, and if you feel that way, you got to do something about it to get in, to make it right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Okay.
All
Absolutely.
right.
All right.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
All right. Peace and
All
love.
right. Peace.